Good morning, all. Welcome to the ninth episode of Country Liquor to Classy Champagne. Today we have two guests, Girish Shivani. He is co-founder of Your Nest Early Stage Venture Capital Fund. Welcome, Girish.
Glad to be here, Ankur.
And the other guest we have a very young, energetic Shawrya Mehrotra. He is a student entrepreneur. Why I call him? He has graduated this year, from Kirorimal College, but I call him student entrepreneur because I've been knowing him for last what 18, 24 months now, and
Absolutely.
he's been fiddling around with his idea. Now has MVP launched, has built a team. So let me start with you, Shaurya. Please share your journey. Why? Why Metvi?
So first of all, I'm really glad to be here. I really look up to what Girish sir has been doing in the startup ecosystem. So the main reason behind starting my own company was probably because of a web series called TVF Pictures, right? And I was really confused about what I really wanted to do back in high school. I was always a great performer. I used to score good grades, but I couldn't really, become an engineer. It was not something that I was kind of interested in. So I kept on fiddling around, and finally I realized that this is something that I really wanted to do. So I started with my first startup project in 11th standard, which was basically a poly khadi textile startup. And had watched a documentary on KVIC, and I realized there's a huge marketing potential. And what if we start making school uniforms from polyester khadi? And that worked really well because we ended up winning a few national level B plan competitions at that point of time, and we were also getting some local investment offers. So that was awesome, and I realized that this is something that's really giving me that rush and that meaning, that purpose to kind of do something good with my professional life. So as soon as I got into college, I started working with a startup. So I got that clarity that this is exactly what I want to do. So I worked with a startup, from the very first day of my college. And after that, I ended up working with Ogilvy, and I realized that corporate culture is not for me, in spite of Ogilvy's amazing work culture. So then I had this idea that I got from this book called Polyester Prince, which is basically on the life of Dhirubhai Ambani. So it talks about how Dhirubhai Ambani used to network with literally everyone that he used to come across, right? So people that he used to meet at Nukkad, people that he used to interact with when he was traveling at a particular place, and he ended up leveraging these networks to do, what he ended up doing. So that really motivated me to start with a small experiment. What if I network with the people that I'm present with at all times and see if there is some kind of, mutual synergy that can be created? Is there is some kind of professional networking need that is present at that point of time. And I used to travel every day from Gurgaon to North Campus for college, and I had 4 hours of doing whatever I wanted to do. So I started talking to people, and I realized that in spite of all the networking apps, I cannot connect with the people who are present right around me, who can solve any kind of networking needs. And that is where I realized that there's a need of a product, right? So this helped motivated me to start Metvi at that point of time. And overall, over a period of time, I kind of realized, what if we use artificial intelligence to completely reduce the friction that is there, or that communication gap that is there between two professionals? It doesn't matter whether they're right next to us or whether they're across the country. What if it's a single step process? So just imagined myself walking down the street and I'm getting a notification saying that, hey Shaurya, you're looking for, say, mentorship from, Girish sir, and you and him happen to be available commonly on Friday at 5 p.m. What I finally need to do is just click on OK, and a one-on-one mentorship call is arranged. So that idea, and not only for mentorship, for any kind of professional need, especially focused towards youngsters, kind of made me realize that yes, there is a gap, and I should kind of work towards solving this. So that's how, that's why we kind of got started with this.
Great. Thanks. And to be very honest, I did not know this part of the story, but we'll come back to it. So, Girish, now, we listen to Shaurya, for a brief period of time. I want to pick your brains that how many of us find young entrepreneurs in this country, and why, at least in my case, why I am not finding a lot of them. So the question is, should people like Shaurya at his age should start up or should continue with their studies, get some experience in the professional corporate environment and come back and then start again? What's your viewpoint?
No, so there is no right or wrong, Ankur. The fact that we know people who started as early as 13, 14, to the fact that we have people on our portfolio who actually started when they were in the mid 50s or early 60s. Okay, so there is no right or wrong. It is when you get hit by a bus literally from an idea perspective, and when you start working on it. So I know people who have had this idea to do something for the last 10 years, but haven't had the courage to, cross the Rubicon, as I call it. And I know people who have just quit everything and said that this is the idea I want to work with. So it's a personal choice in that sense. From a professional perspective, I think, what drives the value of an idea is essentially the passion of the entrepreneur, you know. And a 14, 15-year-old can be as passionate or more passionate as a 60-year-old or vice versa. And therefore, I don't think it's from a timing slash experience, but obviously experience helps. Okay. So, for example, when we started the fund in 2012, the average age of the entrepreneur that we were looking at was about 26, 27 years. Okay. And this was early stage of internet in the country. So a lot of IIT grads were actually, stepping out of the placement process and starting their own and so on and so forth. But today, for example, the average age is about 33, 34 years, which means that there are a lot more people who are coming back to entrepreneurship after working for 7, 8, 10 years in the and obviously, working in the ecosystem gives you a certain advantage in terms of, managing people, in terms of managing politics, in terms of, aligning people to a common goal, as well as you understand that doing business in India is not such an easy thing. The amount of paperwork, the amount of, compliances, etc., which a lot of freshers don't understand. There are benefits, pros and cons of both, starting early as well as not starting early. And I think it is a personal choice as far as an entrepreneur is concerned in terms of what they want to do at a particular point in time. Uh, I'm happy to see that Shaurya actually started while he was still studying. And we see a few of these as well. For example, especially now after this entire Atal Tinkering Lab piece has started to kick in from the government of India. I was in IIT Kanpur a couple of quarters ago, and I saw a team of class 10 students build an IoT product where you could actually control your appliances from the phone, and very simple to install and so on and so forth. So the government is also doing its bit to ensure that entrepreneurship takes root in the Indian ecosystem. But as I said, there are pros and cons of starting early as well as not starting early.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. In fact, last session which we had, it was a 15-year-old Guju guy. He's known as the drone boy of the country.
Mm,
Uh, he has built a drone which he is piloting with Indian Army and Israel Army.
mm,
Um, and he consults the likes of TCS and Havels and other corporates also.
correct.
At so you're right. When the bug hits you, you don't know. It doesn't hit you thinking what's your age.
Correct.
Um, but the topic of today, and I think that leads to my second question is what are the tricks and tips to raise early stage funding? So and so you as an investor, uh, the young entrepreneur who comes, let's say at the age of Shaurya and all, they obviously have a lot of passion. They know what's the problem they're solving, but there are a lot of things which are still, which still need to be sorted. So, so the question is, why should you raise external funding, and when should you raise external funding for early stage guys?
Sure. So I think why you should raise is absolutely clear. Because you need money to go out and build the product, get the right team, etc., etc. I think more important than when is who should you raise it from. So from and there are pools of capital available in the country which address different needs in terms of whether it's a seed stage, whether it's an idea stage, whether it's a pre-series stage, etc. For example, in Shaurya's context. You know, I think to seriously attract institutional capital, you need to at least have an MVP in place. That's more like a rule than an exception. But that does not mean that institutional capital does not get invested in idea stage at all. There are a few there are opportunities, but these are few and far between in terms of an idea stage company attract capital from an institutional investor. So typically the way to do it is, people typically bootstrap or they raise money from friends, family, associates. Because at this stage, people know you. They don't know what product you are working for. They've not seen the product. They know there's an idea. They know you are smart. They know, you are capable to build this out, and therefore they are willing to put 5, 10, 20 lakhs of their own capital in lieu of the stake in the company for you to go out and build the product. Okay. So that's what I call, the friends family round, or whatever. And there are enough and more angel investor networks today in the country, and I'm sure we are in today's connected world network with a lot of people who would find, a specific idea interesting and would be willing to take a small punt, if I may say so, on the opportunity and the team. Okay? So that's when you still don't have an MVP. But if you have an MVP and you actually gotten to a stage where you have customers who are using your product and there is a certain revenue model validation that you've been able to demonstrate, that's the time you start talking to pre-series A investors like us. Because we are in the business of assessing risk. I can assess all types of risks, whether it is political, economic, social, technology, environmental, etc. But I am unable to assess revenue model risk, business model risk, as I call it. For that, I am depending on the entrepreneur because whether that product or service will be paid for by the end consumer, 1 rupee per transaction, 10 rupees per transaction, 100 rupees per transaction will make or break the model. And therefore, as an institutional investor, I am looking towards the entrepreneur to help me validate that assumption. But once that assumption is validated, then it's open season. You should go and start talking to institutional investors and go out and figure out who are the right set of investors for you, and try and raise money. But that's broadly how it operates in the country. But as I said, this is more like there are always exceptions to the rules, right?
Yeah.
But generally, we've seen this is the path that is taken.
Sure, sure. So Shaurya, talk about your MVP. I know you have a lot of users, great engagement. What's your business model? And then we'll come to our next question.
Sure. So when we were just getting started with this journey, we were not sure whether the world requires another networking app at the first place or not. And this was back in 2018. And considering that I had known a lot of investors and a lot of people who were into the startup ecosystem from my experience, in the earlier startup that I was working with, I kind of knew that this is something where I'll have to kind of get some numbers to kind of validate what I'm really trying to do. So we launched the MVP back in 2018 of August, and we ended up getting around 8,000 downloads in a span of 30 days. We were trending on Google Play Store, and it was like we had that moment where the server literally crashed on the first day of the launch, and we hadn't spent even a rupee on our marketing, right? And this kind of made us realize that people are really desperate to connect with the right kind of people, right? And it is much easier for professionals, it's much easier for people who've kind of matured and who have established a network in the industry, who already know a lot of people, like you or like Girish sir for that matter. But when it comes to youngsters, when it comes to the young people, they are really not able to find their way through the maze that is there, especially in the early part of their professional careers. So this was the first launch which kind of motivated both me and Rajan to get started with this journey and not think too much about money in the early days for that matter. Over a period of time, we started to realize that there are certain use cases which are very, very common, which should be monetized, right? And the first such use case that we discovered and we were kind of getting a lot of traction for on the product itself was mentorship. right? That is where, and this mentorship, interestingly, students were not kind of seeking this, or youngsters were not seeking it from people who are very, very mature in their professional careers, but rather they were trying to connect between each other. Probably an 18-year-old trying to connect with a 25-year-old, a 25-year-old trying to connect with a 23-year-old because they want to switch their streams or they want to start something different. Right? So we started seeing a lot of community interaction happen. At the same time, we also started to see that a lot of youngsters did also want to connect with people who are, more mature, probably in their early 30s and all. This, made us realize that, and of course, the pandemic made us realize that we had to start making money sooner than later. And we did not kind of want to get trapped into a position where we did not have any capital, and we had raised a small round from a government-backed incubator, which was of course not enough, and the government also decided to not release the funds during the pandemic. So we were literally at a situation we had to monetize, and that is where we started monetizing, and we created a model called cohort-based mentorship. Right. So here what we try to do is that we were already networking because we are building a networking startup. So that's what we do. So we had built a panel of mentors, right, who are coming from organizations like Nike, PepsiCo, Walmart, Flipkart, CureFit, etc. Right. And all of them had a specialization in a different field. So we were getting, say, somebody who's a product manager at Walmart. We were getting somebody who is a marketing head at CureFit. We're getting somebody who is, working as an analyst in Nike, and so on and so forth. And we realized that the biggest subject, or the biggest core, thing on which people mostly wanted mentorship was management or entrepreneurship or business, right? So we divided this business into 5, 6 different elements that we feel were important. And we started connecting students with these mentors in a fixed 30-day program. Right? Initially, this was free because we wanted to see the traction that we will get. We got 1,500 applicants without circulating the Google form from colleges across India, be it IITs, be it IIMs, be it MBA grads, be it people who are in their first year of jobs, and we were blown away. So we started the first 2 cohorts. We did not charge anything for it, but then we realized that it's time to monetize. Right? So initially we started, connecting them with our mentors in a fixed 30-day program where we will cover all the aspects of management by connecting students to the mentors or youngsters to the mentors, and also helping them out with compendiums or resources. So it created a kind of a complete cohort-based program, right? And we have already, by this point of time, we have already, helped around more than 500 students. We usually charge around 2,000 rupees per person for this. And now we are expanding. Now we are also, I was just sharing it with Ankur, that we are now getting institutional, interest in terms of the, colleges and schools and other education institutes wanting to do this for their organization. Apart from this, talking about the product, over a period of time, we were able to build a very strong AI, which is comparable to the other networking platforms, which is probably better than the other networking platforms that are there in the market, right? So now what we are right now trying to do is bridging the gap. So of course, there is going to be an app where you can directly connect with the kind of people that you're looking for mentorship, and you can also pay online. So now this whole is going to kind of converge into the product itself, right? And this is going to be our first revenue model. We've already earned about 9 lakhs of revenue in a span of around 4 months. So we are really doing well. We can already see a kind of curve happen. So we got around 37,000 rupees in our first month, and now it has grown up to somewhere around 3.54 lakhs in a month, which is, I think, a good number for an early stage startup, which literally did not have any funds, right? And all of this, and considering that we are still a young team, we are really confident about this particular stream. And we also plan to monetize the other networking use cases that we are starting to observe on the product, right? So the future course of action in 1 month's time, we are going to launch the product nationally, of course. So right now it has been restricted. So that's going to open up. And of course, there's going to be an option to enroll for the cohort-based mentorship from the product itself. Right? So as we go further, more use cases will be monetized, and we have already built a massive community. We have collaborated with over 500 colleges and institutes across India, which includes IIM Ahmedabad, which includes IIT Bombay, which includes SRCC, Stephens, Kirodimer. So all the premier colleges are already on board, and they're loving it. So this is what we are right now trying to do, and
Great.
this is how
So
we are monetizing.
so the question, so this is wonderful, but the question is, and picking up from where Girish left, you have an MVP, you have early users, you have some revenue. How easy it is to raise funding for you?
I think it's definitely very difficult, because it's difficult to explain the approach that we are trying to take. So there, even when the pandemic just started, we wanted to raise funds at that point of time, and we did end up getting a term sheet. We did end up getting some interest, but the vision that the investors shared was kind of not matching with what we were trying to do. And we understand this is a buyer's market, but then you don't really want to kind of go on a journey that you're not really willing to take, and that is a very difficult call to make. Because when you see that somebody is willing to invest in you, they really believe in you, you just want to go ahead with it, right? There is that inclination that is there. And we knew that if we don't raise funds, we have to definitely start earning money from our revenue to sustain ourselves. So that approach, that mindset kind of changed from requiring funds, like Girish sir said, to rather than sustaining yourself, you should be raising funds to grow, right? And that is something that we did realize during this period by getting rejected from multiple investors. Even when they were interested, the vision was kind of not matching up. So of course it's a very difficult process, but I think the most important thing that I've realized is that even in case you are unable to raise funds, even in case things are going south, you end up learning a lot of things in this journey. You end up realizing what is important, what's not important. And I think Metvi as a startup has completely evolved in the last 6 months from where we're not earning revenue, we did not have our product ready. The MVP, after launching it, we had to close it down. Now things are very different. We've got paid customers, we've got recurring revenues happening. We are growing at a very more than 20% month-on-month growth rate at this point of time, which is also varying. So it's going up. I'm speaking the numbers on the lower side right now. So on that front, we are very, very confident. And I think fundraising, it's a very difficult process. I think you should, if you're getting into it, you're definitely going to earn or learn a lot, but it's going to take time. So I think hold on and probably just keep on improving. That's the only way to raise funds, probably.
So, Girish, a 21-year-old has this experience that it's not easy to raise fund in this market when we see a lot of angel networks, a lot of investors coming up in last 2 years. And as you rightly said, there's a passion, there's a product, there's an early customer, there's a revenue. So, what is it the early stage entrepreneurs need to do right to increase their conversion rate? Or it's just go and talk to 100 people, you'll end up.
It is that only, Ankur, unfortunately. Please understand there are about 45 or 50 funds that invest at the stage at which Shawrya is, or maybe 10, 15 another angel network. I, as a fund, get to see anywhere between 250 to 300 opportunities every month. Okay.
Yeah.
Assuming that I see only 50% of the market, you're talking about 500 opportunities wanting to raise money every month. So there is a 1:10 skew in terms of buyers versus funders. People who need capital versus people who can provide capital. That is at an institutional level. But there are enough and more individual investors. For example, I know for sure there are at least 4,000 angel investors in the country who put in more than 10 lakh rupees to work last year, or maybe year before last. So that number would have only grown from there. Okay. So it is about, getting lucky, being able to find the right person where you have please understand, getting an investor is like getting married. Okay. Because you are in it for 5-8 years, literally, correct? And there has to be a chemistry match. And if Shaurya says that, at 21 years old, he walked away from a term sheet because he thought the value system of the investor or the path that the investor wanted the company to take did not match with him, kudos to him, because it requires a lot of balls to do it. And that's important, because at the end of the day, that investor is going to sit on your board. He's going to drive your, the way forward, the strategy, etc. And therefore, if you don't, feel comfortable, with such a relationship, then you have a problem at hand. And therefore, I think it is diligence, and that's the reason why I also say that, and it's a function of also the team size that you build together, right? So, for example, for a product like Metvi, which is a technological product, to our mind, you need at least 3 founders to do this. This is not a single founder or a 2-founder game, for the simple reason that you need one technology guy who can build the product and own the product. You need one customer or sales guy who can go out and who can manage the operations, etc. And you need one guy who can manage the finances, go out and fundraise and do other stuff. Fundraising is a full-time job, boss. Okay. The chances that you will attract funds when you don't need them are higher than the chances that you will be able to raise funds when you need them. Push versus
Absolutely.
pull, no. Push versus pull, no. Yeah, human psychology, right? Demand supply. These are the realities on the ground. And therefore, you should try and raise funds when you don't need them. Point number one. Two, Fundraising, as I said, is a full-time job. So therefore, you need one founder whose only job is to fundraise and do subsequent fundraise and do subsequent fundraise. Because it takes time to to convert, especially in today's time and age when physical meetings are not possible to happen. It's so you're doing everything online, etc. You need investors also need time to decide, and therefore you need if you know that you're going to run out of cash 8 months from now, then you should have started fundraising 1 month earlier because it will take you 6 to 9 months to get there. So therefore, it's a lot about uh, you know it's very easy to spray and pray, but it's
Yeah.
also about the research that you do in terms of who are the right investors for you, and then you go after them hammer and tongs. It's like when when you are graduating and you want to figure out what you want to do next. So whether you go and give CAT or whether you go and give law or whether you go and do a UPSC, then you decide and then you go hammer and tongs after it, right? It is no different. So you figure out who are the top investors you want on your cap table, and you go after them. You find opportunities to speak to them, to reach out to them, to cold email them, whatever is it. साम दाम दंड भेद बोलते हैं हिंदी में, ठीक है? तो वो सब करना पड़ता है बॉस, कोई चॉइस नहीं है। जब हम फंड रेज करते हैं तो हम भी यही करते हैं, हम भी तो फंड रेज करते हैं ना एज एन इन्वेस्टर्स, तो हम भी यही करते हैं। So it is, you know, so things don't really change too much whether you are a fund or whether you are an entrepreneur when you are in a fundraise cycle. And therefore, you need focus, you need persistence, you need patience, and you need to know what you want. And
Yeah.
that will decide whether you are able to successfully raise capital or not.
So I think the four five things you talked about, they are largely the art, as people say, the art of raising fund. You have to be persistent. You have to be,
To be, Ankur, to be good at anything, you have to be all these.
hmm.
And
But,
fundraise is
but
also
but but the
fundraise
point
is
that
also an
there has to
activity.
be some science also, na? कुछ तो
Science is in trying to figure out who are those people who will add the most value to you from a fundraise perspective. That's
Hmm,
the science.
hmm.
Today, all information about most of the investors is available in public domain.
Yeah,
You can go to my site, you can figure out what my investment thesis is, what kind of companies I have invested in, how do we help our entrepreneurs, etc., etc. And if you think it fits your, requirement, then nothing stops you from going to my website, clicking on a button and submitting an application. You know, please understand, we are in the business of investing. So therefore, I also want to invest in the best entrepreneurs.
hmm.
So the activity that I'm doing right now, for example, with HostelFund, is the need for that activity is because I want to reach to entrepreneurs and tell them that we are there. And if you think our value system matches your value system, please come in and write to us so that we can look at you from an investment perspective.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, there's no need for me to do this, no?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's your job. It's your day job.
It's my day job, right? So therefore, we do stuff like this essentially to ensure that your Nest brand percolates down to the entrepreneurs, even when they are starting up, right from college, etc. And if there are good opportunities that we should be able to look at early enough, we will look at it. There is no, and once you come on our radar, and then it's easy to reinitiate a dialogue 6 months down the line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so हमारी भी तो गर्ज है कि हमारे को अच्छी कंपनियों में इन्वेस्ट करना है।
हाँ, तभी पैसा बनेगा।
हाँ, करेक्ट, तभी सबका पैसा बनेगा।
No, you're right. You're right. I think that's what when I also speak with the young entrepreneur, I'm saying it's not your job to raise money. It's more important for the investors to invest their money because तुमको तो तुम्हारे जैसे 50 लोगों से मिलना है तब जाके
Correct.
उनके पैसा बनेगा. So don't think that invest because most of the entrepreneurs have this thing. Investors have ego. Investors don't want to talk. Investors don't reply. So I try to tell them, no.
Our promise to the ecosystem, Ankur, and I have said this in multiple forums. I must have personally seen about 18,000 applications, okay, in the last 8 years. Uh, and the process we have at Your Nest is we would have responded to every one of them. इक्का दुक्का कोई रह गई होगी तो मुझे पता नहीं है, बट डिले हो गया होगा, 10 दिन की जगह हमें 15 दिन लगा दिए होंगे, पर ऐसा नहीं हुआ होगा कि हमने एंटरप्रेन्योर को रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं किया।
Hmm.
Okay? So that is my commitment to the ecosystem. Saying you write to me, I will ensure that you hear back from me, whether it is a no or a yes or a maybe, or connect with me at a later point in time when you have more traction. But you will hear back from me or from your nest. Okay. So that's how you build a brand, right? And we worked very hard, to get there.
No, you're right. You're right. So, Shaurya, I know you have been able to build a strong team and you have co-founders also. So, how you have been able to attract like-minded people when you're still in college or you're just 19, 20? And as you rightly said, so who does what? As Girish was saying that, because as fundraising is not a one-time job. It's not a one in 10 years. Because you have to keep on doing this every year, every 6 months. So who does what? Very briefly, if you can touch upon that, and how have you been able to attract people, and who are these people?
So when it comes to attracting people, I think it was more about me networking, right? So I was the kind of guy who could like say hi in a metro, so without coming out as a creep. So I think that itself, kind of that shamelessness, I'd say, helped me interact with a lot of people. I used to just enter, or if Thai is having a summit, I'll arrange for a pass, I'll go inside, I'll start talking to people, I'll start exchanging cards, and I just talk. I just like interacting with people, and so that is why, I ended up interacting with the current team that I happen to be having. So my co-founder Rajan was in the same college, in the same community. He was a college senior, and I was getting started with this. I always knew I wanted to do a startup. He did not have that clarity, but I approached him, and he was like the guy who had more networks than me somehow. So I thought that this is the kind of guy I would want for marketing. So like Sir said, that there need to be three people: one guy who codes, who's into product, one guy who's into marketing, and one guy for fundraise. So we so I knew that after getting Rajan, we needed somebody for technology, right? So I started interacting with a lot of techies, and things were not really working out. So finally, I thought that okay, I'll handle the product, let it be, and I'll learn how product is managed. It's a good skill set to have for that matter. So I hired a few engineers, at an internship where I was just paying them very, very less, right? So that's how I met Shivai. And Shivai had a great profile. He has won, hackathons across MIT, upon at Caltech. He was associated with multiple Google programs. So he was a mentor at Google Summer of Code. He was a mentor at Google Code and Mentor program. He'd worked with EY and Tech Mahindra. So he was somebody who was really good at AI, right? And we wanted to build an AI business, so we wanted somebody who can kind of grow into AI with us, right? And he was also willing to learn new skills. So he started learning front end, and I was like, okay, we are sorted, right? So, we have a team where I manage the fundraise, like Sir said, that you need one person full time doing that. So that is one of the things that I do. But apart from that, at this point of time, I'm also, trying to manage everything, try to, kind of set up our goals and meet them as we grow. Then Rajan handles marketing and acquisition growth. So basically, getting the numbers, helping us, reach to the right kind of people. And then, of course, it's Shivai who codes and who manages the product. So we have that team of three, and we have the same profile as interestingly as Girish sir actually mentioned. So that's the team. That's how
Ah,
we do it.
great, great. So basically, a networking app got its employees or co-founders via networking only. So that's living to the core of a promise. So, Girish, I think one of the
As they
last
say,
questions.
as
Yeah.
they say, you eat your own dog food.
Yeah, yeah. So, you're also a B2B fund, and we are seeing now traction in a B2B companies. But what I'm seeing, as you said, it's in last 8 months when we started Hostel Fund, we have reviewed more than 500 student startup applications, and fortunately or unfortunately 90-95% of them are in B2C domain, because that's where the kids have lived their life, that's what they have seen around themselves, and it's not easy to build a B2C business in today's world. One of the main competitors of Metwe is Lunch Club. They raised $25 million a couple of months ago. So, but there, and no fault of these young guys, because their exposure is limited to what these guys have been seeing around them. But one is, should they start remain focused on the B2C business? That's one. If yes, how easy and difficult it is to raise money, because you have LinkedIn also, you have Meetup, you have Lunch Club, you have hundreds of, and every domain you will find various competitors at various stages.
So I think, uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Loud and clear.
yeah. So I think, generally speaking, B2C models are capital inefficient. And
Okay.
therefore, therefore it boils down to what kind of brand you are able to build and how efficiently you are able to attract the customers to your brand in the long term. Okay, that's necessarily what a B2C model does, correct? You spend X money to acquire a customer, then you monetize that customer, there's a customer lifetime value, and that's how the economic model typically works. Uh, uh, and because it is not so easy or cheap to build a brand, it requires a lot more capital. And it is counterintuitive. Typically, we've seen in all other industries that economies of scale, as you grow, start to favor the manufacturer. So अगर आज आप 100 यूनिट बना रहे हो उसकी कॉस्ट 100 रुपए है, कल को आप 250 बनाओगे तो उसकी कॉस्ट 90 रुपए रह जाएगी, 1000 बनाओगे तो उसकी कॉस्ट 80 रुपए रह जाएगी. Unfortunately, in the customer acquisition play, that does not happen. अगर आज आपकी 100 रुपए स्पेंड कर रहे हो और आपकी कस्टमर एक्विजिशन कॉस्ट 2 रुपए है, कल आप 200 रुपए स्पेंड करोगे तो आपकी कस्टमर एक्विजिशन कॉस्ट एक्चुअली 2.5 रुपए हो जाएगी. बिकॉज बहुत वेस्टेज होती है, बोथ ऑन द डिजिटल मीडिया एज वेल एज ऑन ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया. When you go out and advertise, when you go out and do direct reach, whether you use Google, Facebook, print, TV, whatever, you are actually you are getting eyeballs, but a lot of those eyeballs are not relevant to you. Therefore, the targeting kind of starts to get compromised. And what happens is you will get more customers in the funnel, you will get more downloads of the app, but the stickiness of the customer starts to go down. And that's counterintuitive, correct? And therefore, uh, it's a personal choice in the life of an entrepreneur to figure out which way his interest lies. Some people are very, very clear that they actually go out and want to build a consumer model because they don't understand or identify with the enterprise model, or in their vertical the enterprise model does there is really no stickiness in the enterprise model. So therefore it's a personal choice in terms of what vertical are you working in, what is the need gap that you're trying to solve for. There is no black and white to say कि ये consumer होना चाहिए या enterprise होना चाहिए.
Hmm.
Okay. And there are intermediaries. There are B2B2C opportunities where you as a business sell to a business which sells to a consumer who uses your product. So there are multiple variations which are out there in the marketplace for you to be able to find out what your niche is. But the limited point I want to make is you must experiment with all the models. Don't discount a model because you're not comfortable with it. Experiment with it. See if there is a value prop that can be created in that. So if you are a consumer facing business model, see if a value prop can be created for an enterprise facing business model. You might be surprised.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, you are in the business of building an organization, building a model, building a opportunity. Why would you let your mind block limit the opportunity? Just because you're not comfortable with a model does not mean you should not experiment with it. You can get people who are comfortable with that model. They can experiment it for you. In all probability, it will not work. But at least you would have given it a shot to figure out whether there is an opportunity that you're leaving, for somebody else. I'm saying even from a competitive perspective, if you are not addressing a particular TG or a particular segment of the market, you are actually leaving yourself to be blindsided sooner than later. So at least think about it. At least give it a serious thought to figure out whether it works for you or not. And if it does not, it's okay. But at least you would not repent that I should have tried it when I had the time. A lot of Please understand, so there was a study done in the US, and this is US data, for about 400 odd companies, 200 which became extremely successful and 200 which didn't succeed or which had to be written off or wound down or whatever else. The biggest reason of success was attributed to the timing of the opportunity. 42% weightage was given to the timing of the opportunity, in terms of whether that opportunity was successful or not, because they were in the right time. There were players who came before them, with a similar model. There were players who came after them with a similar model. But these guys became successful because they were right, at the cusp of the time when it was the most needed. And therefore, uh, that tells you that there's a lot of stuff out there which is beyond your control. Therefore, you should at least take a conscious call to disprove a theory. Just don't disprove it because you're not comfortable with it.
Yeah. EdTech has been there for last 15
Correct?
years. EdTech will be there for
Correct.
next 15
But
years.
correct. But you needed COVID to get EdTech where it is, right?
Yeah. You're right. You're right. Yeah. So, Shaurya, last question. You are young. You have built. I believe you have built a great brand. Which has a stickiness in the young community mind. What are the two big hacks? What are the two big jugaad which you did in terms of reaching out to people, building a product, investor, whatever it could be, and how did you do it?
See, I think probably, I've had conversation about hacks with Ankur multiple times, and we are using around 15, 20 different hacks to kind of get the marketing done because, like Sir said, it's very difficult to build a brand when you don't have any funds. And interestingly, by this point of time, we have a model which we call the zero cost marketing. Like, we've literally not spent any money on getting revenue or even acquisition numbers. And I know that that's not going to be possible as we kind of scale up. But at least at this point of time, we have been successful at doing it. So I think the first, the first big hack that I would say is, building a community oriented approach, right? And, what we tried to do was, tell people about what we are trying to do and building a community of people who are really interested in, seeing a product like this come through, right? And this is something that happened, very naturally because when we launched the MVP, we just, circulated some form saying that if you're interested to see a product like this come alive, would you want to become, sort of associated with us, right? Be it like a volunteer, be it like an intern, and we won't be able to pay you. But if you really want to see something like this happen, would you want to stick around, right? And we got 1,500 responses. And that was again something that was quite amazing. So we started building a community, and a very focused community who were looking for a product like this. And this community over a period of time has grown, and this community is not at a particular place at this point of time. Some of them are on the app, some of them are connected with us on a WhatsApp group, some of them are on a Telegram group, and so on and so forth. But this community has grown. They have helped us improve upon the product. They have helped us in marketing the product. They have helped us attract more people who've come and used the product, right? So they have literally helped us on every sphere of business, which wouldn't have been possible had we tried to kind of just use very direct marketing or branding strategies to build an awareness, right? So if you look at our growth numbers, if you look at the brand that we've created, we've been covered by multiple local media houses, a few of more known media houses as well. We've got probably more social media engagement than those startups who have already raised around 10-15 crores, right? And are also consumer brands. So those numbers have been only possible because of taking such an approach, because of directly reaching out to people. So that's one. The second approach for us have been to create a great experience for whosoever we are coming across in whatever capacity. So we kind of underplay this, and if we think about blitzscaling models or whatever theories they are, the focus is that you only focus on growth. Don't think that much about customer experience when you're especially getting into the growth stage. For us, we have spent a lot of time in interacting with people, calling them one-on-one. Even if there's a community of 100 people who are directly helping us manage the product, we will reach out to them. We will have a conversation. We will get involved in what they're trying to do. We will also know a little bit about their personal lives to that kind of an extent. And then the loyalty, then the attachment that we've seen. Like, some people have stuck around for 1.5 years, and they're not, directly associated with the company. We haven't been able to pay them. And they're there. They're helping us out with a lot of things, right? So I think it's not only about building the community, it's also about giving any person that we are kind of connecting with, be it for marketing, be it for helping, needing some help with something, be it about connecting with mentors, right? We have established that, and we have grown in numbers because of that also, right?
Got
So
it,
I
got
think
it, got it.
building a
So
community, good experience, that's what helps.
yeah, great. So okay, so one last question before I move to Girish. At this stage in time, name two people whom you want uh, on your investor list. What's your
Yeah,
wish
I think
list?
that's That's a very, very difficult question, and I think, see, I think one name that we really wanted was Y Combinator, to be very honest, because, and that's the reason we got through startup school. We were almost there, and we also got a mail from them that the idea is really good, but at this point of time, they are not looking to it. So that was one name that we really wanted. Second name, as so I won't name, in Indian investors for that matter because that will get. I don't really want to kind of pick any names because I think all the names that are kind of good enough. I mean, I remember we had also reached out to Your Nest in the very year of our inception, right? And like Sir said, we did end up getting a response that it's too early at that point of time. So I mean, of course, Yorness is one of the big names, and as soon as you told me that Girish sir would be coming in, I was like, wow, that was my first response. So of course, apart from the big names like Sequoia, for that matter, IDG, SAF Partners, these are the big ones. Of course, and Axel, Nexus. You want these kind of people, but of course, we want Peter Thiel because that's the wish list. You want somebody like Peter Thiel and Y Combinator to kind of come in together, and that would be like dream come true. So these would be the two names that I will take.
Got it, got it. So, thanks, Shaurya. Giri sir, one last question, and you can take as much time you want. How can young entrepreneurs reach out to their dream investors? Um, what are the tricks, tips, art, science? I don't know what's the right word. And or should they spend time doing that, or building, or otherwise spend time on building the product?
No, no. So I think a lot of people, so Y Combinator and Peter Thiel are very good names to have. There's no two ways about it. Shraddha. But you must also figure out what kind of value will they add to you. It is not about just the name, okay? And therefore, look at today. Everybody is available on social media. Everybody has Twitter account. Everybody's on LinkedIn. No, everybody's on Instagram, Facebook. All the funds are there, on each of these platforms as well. So reaching out to people today is not such a big deal. No, I think a lot of people know realize are not comfortable doing a cold call. So therefore, do your research, find the right reference. And in today's world, there are people say there are 6 degrees of separation. I think there are only not more than 2 degrees of separation. You will find somebody in your network who knows somebody in my network who can reach out to me. And therefore,
Absolutely.
do your diligence and figure out who you want to reach out to. If you reach out through a reference, you will obviously be looked at a little bit more seriously. Not that we don't get cold mails and we don't look at people seriously if it's a cold mail, but that helps. Okay, and today, as I said, all investors are hungry for good entrepreneurs to back. And therefore, rest assured, if you think you are at the right stage, and if you think that that investor is particularly important for you to get on the cap table, uh, today there are ways and means to reach out. It's up to you to figure out what those ways and means are. As I said, every fund has a website today.
Yeah.
Every fund manager, every partner has a LinkedIn profile today. Every fund manager, every partner has a Twitter account today. So therefore, in today's connected world, I don't think it is about uh, trying to figure out who are the right people and how to reach them. I think it is about what story can you tell them, how can you pique their interest, and therefore, how can you get it to a stage where the intent of reach out is what? The intent of reach out is not the check. The intent of reach out is a 30-minute audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
The check is 10 steps away. Okay. A lot of people reach out with an intent saying, अब मैंने दे दिया मुझे आप चेक लिख के दे दो ऐसा नहीं होता ठीक है ना so you reach out with an intent saying that I need 30 minutes of your calendar and this is what we're working on. If you're interested, please let me know. We'll set up a da da da. And and I can tell you, 8 out of 10 people will respond.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of this is also about expectation management at the entrepreneur level, Ankur and Shawrya.
Hmm.
You know, if today's generation, needs instant gratification, as I call it.
Right.
You can get instant gratification in a lot of fields. Funding is not one of them. Okay, so you have to be, you
Right.
have to, you have to Realize that, and be patient and persistent about it. That's all. एक बार जैसे अब मैंने आपको मना किया था 2018 में, you have a line of communication with us, right? There's nothing which stops you from writing in again. Okay,
Right.
and we will take a look again, and we will come back to you if there is interest. No, so it's an iterative process, and therefore entrepreneurs should realize that raising money is not such an easy thing to do. It takes time, money, it takes time and effort to get there, and you have to be patient about it. That's all.
No,
Right.
thanks. I think you made a great point that raising money is in real terms, it's like a marriage of Saat Janam.
Correct,
So it will
correct.
take that much time.
It will take time. You will need to go on a date. You will need to go on a coffee. You will need to go watch a movie. You will need to meet the parents. You will need to do all that stuff to get to a
Yeah,
stage where you can get married.
yeah. So thanks a lot, Girish. I think you really made a lot of, on ground valid points which will help our audience, our young entrepreneurs. We work with almost 100 colleges, incubators, e-cells, and as you rightly said, I can't tell you, we get at least 10 LinkedIn messages which says, this is my idea, will you invest in? And yesterday, I got a follow-up email saying, you still haven't replied. Are you interested in investing us? I said, hey, tell me who you are, what you are doing. कुछ नहीं लिखा था. Just, my name is so and so. I am working on a product. Will you be able to invest in us? I think this is not even an approach. This is
And I
nothing.
and one thing that kind of pisses me off completely, and pardon my language, is when people on a same email mark a CC to the world and his uncle. I have mails in my mailbox, and I get one or two every week where an
Hmm.
entrepreneur is writing to me and he's writing to 50 other players in the market, everybody marked on CC.
Ah,
That's the fastest way to get on my shit list.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
Okay, I will blacklist you for your life, and I will ensure that I will not invest in this company ever or any other company that you work for. You know,
Yeah,
so that's how stupid some people can be.
yeah, yeah.
There, boss, it takes there's a mail merge functionality in Microsoft Word where you can do a mail merge. You have an Excel sheet with a name and address and email address, and you have a content, and you mail merge it, and it goes individually to every person. It takes 10 minutes to learn. If you can't even take that much effort and write to me personally or write to an investor personally, the chances that you will get money from me are zero. They are
Yeah,
not even
yeah,
0.01%, they are zero. Okay. So a lot of this stuff people don't realize.
you're right. And this surprises me because this is very basic. This is very
Boss,
basic.
I get Ankur, I'm not joking, I get two every week.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking that I should name and shame some of these guys.
Yeah. So okay, we'll discuss this in next session. I think thanks a lot, Shaurya. All the very best in fundraising. And as I've been telling you, you are 20, you have 40, 50 years ahead of life. You're not going to raise funding for the first time. And it's not about funding. You will be building businesses once you have that kira in you.
I I think Ankur, I would like to add in,
Please, please.
देखो, funding is a ways to a means. It is not the end of it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And therefore, actually, if you really ask me, work begins after you raise funding. Because then now you have the fiduciary and the moral responsibility to return capital to your investor.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people don't see it that way. A lot of people see कि बॉस फंडिंग होगी मैं तो किंग हो गया. ऐसा नहीं होता बॉस. फंडिंग होगी तो आप सबसे बड़े गुलाम आप हो फंडिंग के बाद. तो ये माइंडसेट चेंज ये माइंडसेट है. you know so
Absolutely.
therefore look at people should look funding with the right lens. Okay, funding is not the be all and end all of it. Funding is only the beginning of the greatness that you can potentially achieve. And even after that, the chances you will get there are only minuscule.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Girish. Thanks a lot, Shaurya.
Thank you so
We'll be in
much.
touch. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ankur, for
Bye bye.
having me here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Shara.
Girish
Pleasure
sir.
meeting you. Yeah.
Same here, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye, sir.